certain look moved me to try film photography. This airy look with its soft light and pastel colors that I haven't seen anywhere else. I have devoured channels like Negative Feedback, Grainy Days and Willem Verbeek. But how do they get those creamy soft colors that make up their style? And I noticed two things that was repeated over and over again, almost like a mantra. Are these two things basic requirements to get the pastel color style? But what if I told you that you don't need portrait and that mindless overexposure is the biggest misinformation in the whole community? Many of you probably know this, since I'm not the first to figure it out.
Back when I first started using a lab and I actually sent them film and got them to do scans on both a Noritsu and a Frontier, this is actually, I believe, 2-stop overexposed Portra 400. How you're scanning it, who's scanning it, what type of scanner is being used matters so much, and it will really affect how your images look.
After I may have accidentally destroyed your world, I will tell you what you really need to get that famous pastel color look. Any color negative film. And with any, I mean any. A proper exposed negative. And that's what I'm going to show you today. What I mean by properly exposed and how you can achieve that yourself. In the next parts I will show you how to scan and then how you process the negative, so that you definitely get these results. Why is a correctly exposed negative important anyway? I will show you an example. As you can see here, you can create an overexposed pastel style even with underexposed images. However, you can also see that due to the underexposure, details in the darker areas are no longer present. This can be used as a creative tool, but not my goal here. To make the overexposed style work, you should avoid underexposure. So, that we are all on the same page, I will show you now how to expose film. So much in advance, unfortunately, it is not possible to blindly trust the reflective exposure meter in your camera all of the time. Every negative film has a specific dynamic range. This means how far apart the darkest and the brightest points in your picture can be, in terms of exposure. Professional films have more range, budget films less. Again, Kyle McDougall is a good source. In this picture you can see the dynamic range of portrait. In contrast to digital sensors, you can overexpose rather than underexpose. However, from +4 overexposure, the colors change noticeably, so you should also not overexpose carelessly and hope that everything goes well. To expose correctly, you should measure the darkest and the brightest area where you want to see detail and average it out. But nobody has time for that. Therefore, I will show you what exposure methods have proven worthwhile. This method is for cameras with built-in reflective light meter, and I use the camera in full manual mode. As a base, I use a modified form of the Sunny 16 rule. Sunny 16 means that in bright sunlight you choose the exposure speed closest to the ISO value of the film you are using, with a constant aperture of f16. Effectively, you expose for the lights. However, you really have to be careful not to underexpose. That's why I like to expose for the shadows, because the probability of underexposure is much lower. In this picture you have a sunny side and a shady side, and I expose for the shady side because I want all the details here. So f16 becomes f8 since shadows are usually 2 stops darker. Depending on the film you are using, you should even overexpose by 1 stop, as box speed is usually not optimal, especially for budget films. You should also be aware that overexposure is always accompanied by color shifts and contrast changes. You should always pay attention to the light situation and adjust the exposure if necessary. So don't switch off your brain and hope that everything is always right. With an incident meter, I find everything is at least a little easier and more accurate, but also way slower. For an accurate measurement, hold the light meter in the shadow of the object. For a general measurement, when it's sunny, just turn your body around and measure the shadows. For both measurements, watch if you want to photograph very dark or black areas, and if necessary, expose 1 or 2 f-stops more. That's it. I also like to use cameras with internal exposure modes. The accuracy of these modes varies from camera to camera, or with point and shoots cannot be estimated at all. The first thing I would do with these cameras is to use another camera or a light meter app to check if the light meter is still working accurately. Even if the light meter is correct, I would add at least 1 stop of light to be on the safe side for dark situations or darker objects. A special situation is an object that is backlit by the sun. There you can always add 2 stops to the exposure or use an exposure lock to set exposure beforehand. So with my Canon A1 for example, I never had problems with underexposure. With these tips you should always have a perfect exposed picture as long as you're aware of your surroundings. In the next episode I will show you my entire scan process and you will get tips and tricks I have collected over the years. Many thanks to all my Buy Me a Coffee sponsors. Without your help this channel would be a lot harder to maintain. If you want to see how I bought 50 rolls of Kodak Gold in one go, or you want to see more pastel pictures, then you can watch these 2 videos. Until next time guys, take care, bye!